Dana White has just announced that Merab Dvalishvili will be making an unprecedented fourth title defense in 12 months when he faces Petr Yan this December. There's so much to get into with this announcement, including the real reason why Merab is so desperate to fight so soon after just being out against Corey Sandhagen. So in today's video, we're going to take a look ahead at this fight, look at how the rematch between Merab and Yan could look different. If Merab were to win again, what would that mean for his legacy? And then we'll get into the real reason why I think Merab's taking this fight so soon. Hello guys and welcome back to Alex on MMA. So the Renier Derrida and Brendan Allen preview video is going to have to wait a couple of days following this announcement by Dana White. The Machine could not be a more fitting nickname for Merab Dvalishvili. I know he made no secret of his desire to fight again, but the fact that he's turning around so quickly against such a dangerous operator in Petr Yan, you just have to respect the guy. Like I say, the Machine, what a nickname, not just for his style of fighting, but the level of activity. Being this active in 2025, it's just insane. So full respect to Merab. Even if you don't necessarily like his fighting style, the fact that he is being so active, coming again and again, training so hard and somehow not getting injured during these grueling training camps where he's running up mountains and sparring on fight days and things like that, you just have to respect it. So with that being said, let's get into it. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do. Comment below where you think Merab is currently on the pound for pound list and like this video. So talking about the fight itself between Merab Dvalishvili and Petr Yan, the first fight was one of the most one-sided displays we've seen in recent bantamweight history. Merab was just spamming the takedowns against Petr Yan. Yan started okay, he's normally quite a slow starter, but Merab just kept forcing him against the fence. He failed on so many of those takedowns, but he was so persistent, so relentless with the pressure. It just seemed as though he broke Petr Yan. And one of the concerns going into that fight for me, and it came to be true, was the lack of confidence that Petr Yan seemed to have. Following his losses to Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley, this was probably the worst time to face Merab, because you can just imagine Merab's one of those fighters who will feed off a lack of confidence in an opponent, and Petr Yan visibly did not look confident. That's why I'm so happy that he's had not just one victory and then gone straight back to fighting Merab, but he's on a 3-fight win streak, and I think you cannot overstate the importance of this, because even in the fight, his first comeback fight against Song Yadong after losing to Merab, he didn't look like the same Petr Yan really in that fight at all. Yes, he did get the victory. He scored some good takedowns in that fight, but he didn't quite look like his old self. And I think it was really important for him to get that win under his belt by any means necessary and then push on from there. And what we've seen since in his fights against Davison Figueiredo and more recently against Marcus McGee is an invigorated version of Petr Yan. He looks like his confident old self. He's going for his trademark tricks and really technical stand-up fighting. So he seems to regain that confidence that perhaps he didn't have heading into that first Merab fight. And I think it'll be so important because despite the stoic appearance of Petr Yan, I think he is a fighter who does, because of his quite extravagant style at times, he's not necessarily orthodox all the time. He likes to be a bit tricky with his fighting. I think confidence could play a real key part. So I do think that this fight could look quite different. On the other hand, Merab, he's the impossible puzzle to solve currently, isn't he? And he just seems to be getting better and better. And for this reason, even though I'm not expecting this fight to look the same as the first one did, it could potentially be even worse for Petr Yan, because Merab has improved so much, not only with his striking, as we saw against Corey Sandhagen. There was only one fighter in that fight close to being finished, and it was Corey Sandhagen. In that second round, Petr Yan really rocked him behind the ear, knocked off his equilibrium, and it looked as though Merab would finally get that TKO finish that we'd all been waiting for. And then in the fight before that, getting that ninja choke, that front kind of Ezekiel choke on Sean O'Malley, that showed that he's not just prepared to be a decision fighter, he is actually looking for a finish. So despite the improvements that Petr Yan, in terms of his mental improvements and his technical improvements that he's made, the same can definitely be said tenfold for Merab Dvalishvili. Somehow at 34 years old, this guy's just getting better and better. And you know what? The scary thing is, I think there's better still to come, because he is improving each and every fight. And this fight against Petr Yan, expect a really technical chess match. Merab will do his thing, keep moving forward. And I really hope that Petr Yan is coming up with a nice game plan to deal with this, because Petr Yan on his day is one of the best fighters to watch in the UFC from a technical perspective. and Merab's just going to keep coming forward. So I'm really intrigued as to what this rematch is going to look like. So again, I think it's excellent matchmaking by the UFC. I think Petr Yan does deserve it ahead of any other contender. And like I said, I think it's good that he's been away, spent his time racking up the wins again, and he gets another crack at Merab. A chip on his shoulder that I'm sure he'll love to deal with. And when we get closer to the fight itself, I will be doing more of a technical breakdown where we review fight clips. But in this video, I really want to get into the real reason why I think Merab is taking this fight, his 4th title defense in 12 months, because let's face it, this just isn't the done thing in the UFC in 2025. And he's given a lot of talk about legacy. He wants to be the first fighter in bantamweight history to do this kind of thing. And I think that's definitely, there's an element of truth in all of that. But for me, the real reason is all to do with his style of fighting. And it's fairly simple. You need to, what's the phrase? Make hay whilst the sun is shining. He's 34 years old. These title defenses, pay-per-views, is the most amount of money that he's ever going to earn in the sport. And I know that this is a pay-per-view main event with Merab in it, and the co-main is a flyweight. So it's not going to be the highest earner. In fact, it could well be the lowest earner of pay-per-views this year. But even so, this is going to be his opportunity to maximize the amount of money that he gets from fighting. And I think that he's intelligent enough and his team are intelligent enough to realize that Merab is 34. And look, up the weights, that might not be quite as much of a big deal. But at bantamweights, at the lighter weights, fighters do age more quickly. He's 34 and he's got such an intense fighting style that depends so much on his cardio being at such a high level. I think that Merab has just realized that he's very much in his peak. When the drop-off happens, we don't know when that might be, but the drop-off probably will be quite steep. So for his career, forgetting his legacy for a moment, but in terms of his career and the maximum that he can take out of the UFC financially, this is his opportunity. Whilst he's fit, he's healthy, he's winning fights, he's a level above the rest of the division, he just thinks about activity. He wants to keep earning money, keep earning the pay-per-view points, and who can blame him? And then the other reason when he speaks about legacy and history, I'm sure part of that is true, but in my mind, we're already seeing the greatest bantamweight of all time. If he was to fight Petr Yan in February, March of next year, I don't think that would take anything away from it. So yes, whilst he might be breaking a record in terms of activity, for me, he's just realized what he's all about. He knows what his game plan is. He knows that he's very proficient on the feet, got very good takedowns clearly. But really, we all know that Merab's superpower is that gas tank. It's the engine. He's the machine for a reason. And at 34 years old, there's only, it sounds crazy to say it because Merab keeps getting better, but there's only a finite amount of time that he's going to be able to spam 30, 40, 50 takedowns in across 5 rounds against opponents before he just can't do it anymore. And let's face it, at the moment, that would be one of the saddest drop-offs in UFC, because one of the reasons, even if you don't necessarily like the grappling, you can't help but be impressed by the output of Merab. And I think it's just come to a point where he's realized he's in his peak, he needs to go for it now, and that's why he's so desperate to fight again in 12 months. And look, this is just my opinion. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, but I do think this is a very calculated risk that Yan and his team have put into accepting this fight. I wouldn't call it short notice, but quick turnaround. So anyway, let's move on to what happens if Merab were to win this fight, or if Petr Yan were to win this fight. What would that mean for both of their legacies? Firstly, for Petr Yan, if he does overcome this huge obstacle in the form of Merab after suffering such a devastating defeat first time round that really did set him back mentally, this would be one of the greatest comebacks in bantamweight history. To go away, rebuild, come back, and beat the greatest bantamweight of all time, Petr Yan is elevating himself back up that list, back up that pound-for-pound list, and reasserting himself as one of the best bantamweights of all time. And I think for a fighter who is so technically skilled as Petr Yan, he's fully deserving of this. Forget the losses beforehand. That Sean O'Malley loss was really controversial. The Aljamain Sterling was a split decision loss. Really, it's the Merab loss. That's the one that stands out on his record as being particularly bad. A really poor display on the night. So if Petr Yan was able to overcome this, get that victory back against Merab, probably setting up a trilogy, then that would be an incredible moment in UFC history. And if Merab were to beat Petr Yan in the rematch, really just seal that off, no talk of a trilogy. If he was to win in a dominant display, get that 4th victory in 12 months, then I think the conversation is over. He's definitely the best bantamweight of all time. He's got to go to number 1 on that pound for pound list for me. Yes, Ilya's gone up and beat Charles Oliveira. Islam Makhachev's done what he's done. But in terms of activity, resume, all of the rest, you just can't deny that Merab he's already an all-time great, but he should put himself pound for pound number 1 with a victory in December against Merab. So guys, that's all from me. Let me know if you agree. Do you think the real reason why Merab is taking this fight so quickly is because he's very aware about where he's in his career right now and to maximise those financial gains? Like I said, Renier de Ridder against Brendan Allen video will be coming in the next couple of days because that's a fight I'm excited about. I'll be honest, I can only see it going one way, but it'll be interesting to really take a deep dive into both fighters' fighting styles and make a video on that. So anyway, please do subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.